Removing the light switch requires you to remove this outer trim panel here. There's two pins in the back. You don't want to grab any kind of plastic pry tool, get underneath it and pull forward. So these pins are just pretty thick metal pins, just kind of, well, they're not really, I don't know, probably aluminum or something. Either way, they're just jammed into this plastic. If you're not too careful, you can rip this plastic piece that they're wedged into, and then they pretty much become useless. They go into these, what appear to be an additional type of plastic, just kind of holding area. And then the light module has two screws, one there, and then it has a bit of a seat in here, so you'll kind of want to pull out and up. So anyway, like I said, it does have a bit of a seat that it sits in. The easiest way is to just kind of pry up here and there with both of your hands. Kind of give it an upwards push, and it'll unseat itself. And at that point, you can pull forward, and you'll see the connector up top there. So just slowly work it out, and then you should be able to reach in there, depress this tab right there, depress it, and roll this connector over, and it will release from the module itself. All right, once you're here, it appears you just have two big tabs here and there. You just press on one, pull up, press on the other side as well. Maybe a screwdriver or something will help, just to get it down underneath it. There it is. That exposes you to a ribbon cable. Based on the illustration there, you just grab the cable firmly and pull down. Okay, that releases this 10-pin connector there. So set this piece aside, and all we're left with is the face. Okay, looks like just a small cover. It's not really attached by much of anything on the back there. And we have a Torx screw here. So let me go get a Torx bit. I'll be right back. All right, T10 Torx on this. Remove that screw, bolt, whatever you want to call it. Trying to see if I'm missing something. I don't really see anything else securing it. Looks like the board is just held in here on the side. Again, all of these are usually my first time taking something apart. So try to be careful so you don't break it. But yeah, that's all it appears to be. It's just these little slots right there, two on the opposite side as well. Just carefully pry at the side here. It does have a little bit of give. And as you do that, lift up on the board. And there we go. All right, so let me see here. Trying to make out of all these buttons here will do. So, from the looks of it, these here just illuminate all the different functions as far as automatic lights, off position the parking lights and lights on here. And you have one way up here for this dimmer potentiometer. And I'd imagine this needs to come off. Looks like they put a 3mm in here, which I'm probably just going to end up replacing with one of these PLCC2 lights. So all of these are the same as the cluster, the 1206 PLCC2. I'm gonna figure out how to take this guy apart here and replace it with one of these as well. So I'll be back shortly. Well, upon further examination, this here is the switch for the fog lights, as well as the LED that lights through this switch here. So this is just a monetary switch that signals to the computer to toggle the fog lights on and off. If you take this top piece off, you'll see in there's a couple of contacts that this plastic piece separates, and as you push it down, those contacts touch together, which sends the computer an input signal to toggle the lights either on or off based on present conditions. So as you press it down, it lets those contacts touch, and when you release it, it comes back up and separates those contacts. So from all I can see, this LED is soldered underneath the switch, but that also requires you to desolder this whole switch from the board. So what we'll do next is there's 4 pins here, and I've already started a little bit at it. We'll just take some tape here, or whatever you call this, just some solder wick. I don't know what this stuff is made of, some copper, I guess. And we'll just apply some heat against this to see if we can get all the solder off to get this switch to release off the board. So that'll probably be on a time lapse here in just a second. All right, so pretty much once you're done with that, this is what you're left with. Again, you'll need to remember the orientation here. The plastic bit faces downward, so when you do put it back in, that's how you want to put it in. So cleaned up all these holes, make sure all the solder is gone, that way we can just poke this guy right back through. We can set that board aside for right now. I want to focus on this switch first. So either way, the LED is soldered at the bottom of it right there. So next order of biz is to heat this up and pull this LED through the switch this way. Probably again going to be on time lapse here, as I'll have to fiddle around with some of these hands and holding onto the LED, trying to pull it away while heating these pads down here. So as you witnessed me struggle there, these are not soldered. These are cold welds, kind of like the light switches on the terminals. They have small like compression welds. So I gotta think about this now. Probably going to Let me just Dremel these out to allow this LED to come out. All right, so yeah, using a Dremel bit with this, I don't know what type of tool this is. I'm not a rotary tool specialist. Either way, I was able to get through this thing. Let me see if I can get it in focus. There you go. If you get just down enough, you'll open up the two holes that were in there, which this LED sat in. So you want to, take some material away and go down enough, and then just flip it over and try to pull this LED out. So I don't know if you'll be able to see through that or not. It's kind of tough to see what I'm recording here. There you go. See the two holes as you look through. Probably can see that, I believe. So essentially just another LED you'll pop through. The positive side is this guy over here. So I did test that earlier off camera. So when you're looking at the switch from the original position, the positive side was here on the right side. Now, I don't know if that also translates to the same way to the right pin here being positive. So I think the way to test that is just to pop the LED in, and we'll apply some power across it, the bottom legs, to see if that will light it up. So this is a trial for me as well. I don't know if this will actually work or not. Hopefully it does. Hopefully I'm thinking of this the correct way. And it does work. So that is right. So as you apply power on this leg, as you see, there you go, it's illuminated. Now I'm not going to use this green LED. This is mostly just a test piece, just to make sure that it fit down in there. More than likely what I will be doing is, I'll be putting it back on here and seeing if I can mount a PLCC type LED, this one here, up into the switch a bit. That way when it rocks, what it does, I guess it'd be easier to show off of this, but this rocker here, or as the switch rocks up and down, this cutout square here actually sits on top of the switch, and you depress it, it pushes down on the actual switch itself. So my idea is I want to set this up high enough to sit off top of the switch, and then I'm gonna cut the LED off the top and put a PLCC LED on it. I'm gonna see if I have a white one of these. I'm just gonna compare the brightness on it compared to the rest of these. I mean, obviously the PLCCs are gonna be a lot brighter than a 3mm LED. I wanna see if it's gonna be enough of a difference where it's worth messing around with trying to replace this one with a PLCC light. So I'll do that off camera and kind of come back to you with the decision I made, see if I can take a couple pictures of the differences as well. So we'll go from there. Okay, just to kind of give you an update of what you saw in that time lapse. I ended up going with the PLCC2 only because I want to keep it uniform, as the rest of these are also the same type of LED. It'd be a lot easier to use that 3mm, but I don't know, I figured I'd try something out. If you couldn't really tell the difference with the orange lights that are currently in your car, you probably won't be able to tell too much of a difference with the 3mm in there. But I did notice in the window switches that these PLCC lights are just a tad bit brighter. So that's the reason I went for these. So essentially what I did is I took just a regular 3mm LED. I took the legs off of it. I used the PLCC light. I flipped it over. I soldered some legs to it. Put it inside of this switch. Used some pliers, pretty much, just to twist it around to give it more of a vertical. And the only reason for that is due to this button that pushes against this. It has these two slots inside of it, and I did not want that to hit the side of the LED as you push down on it. Then I went back in, soldered the button back onto the board, and now when this button goes back on, now you can see it here, as it goes back on, let me see, make sure it's all in view. When this button top goes back on top of the switch, you see it fits inside of the little area inside of the button itself. So when it's clipped in, the actual LED is down inside that switch and won't make any difference, won't interfere with the switch button being pushed. Again, this is just a little bit further than really anybody needs to go, but the 3mm would be the easiest way to go about it. I'm gonna go ahead and replace the rest of these really quick, and we'll go to the car and check it out. All right, we got them all changed out. These 5 here, that'll indicate inside the rotary dial, and this one up here for the illumination of the dimmer, and this one for the fog light. Now, one thing to note, if you do have the rear fogs European version, you'll have another one of these switches over here. You'll have to do the same process on it, desolder, remove this guy, and I believe on the self or the manual leveling headlights, I think that's where the second dial, I guess, comes in. They have an additional LED up here, and then there's one more LED inside of this tiny square to illuminate through that dial to light up the numbers on it. That process does get a little bit more intricate, as you do need to remove all of this. So essentially you'd have to go in the back here and desolder several of the pins, remove this cage, and then, you know, solder in the LEDs. So I don't have that, but if you do have that type of switch, you're in for a lot more work than this. Now, I've come across something I find pretty disappointing, and I'm not really sure what the solution is at the moment. As you can see, all the LEDs are lit up bright white. The unfortunate thing is it appears all the covers here have a yellowish tint underneath them, so they don't necessarily light up bright white like you'd expect. Definitely not like the rest of the car so far. This is like a warm white. A little bit disappointing. I'll have to see if I can figure out what to do about this, but same thing with this guy. When you put it on, I'm just gonna lay it over really quick, one-handed here, see what it can do. But as you can see, this is definitely not bright white. So here we are sometime later, and I think the solution is going to be just like in my lock switch, hazard switch video. It'll be to use this film that diffuses the color into a brighter color. So pretty much the idea of this is to boost 3200 Kelvin to 5500 Kelvin in a light spectrum. So regardless of us shining a bright white flashlight into this, the light shows up yellow. It is a warm white, and when we put this diffuser underneath it, it takes that warm white and pretty much turns it into a bright white. I've done this in the video for the hazard switch, and it does match the rest of the interior, so it's not like it's gonna look odd. So it will look just fine. Same thing with this fog light switch. Let's see. It's yellow. It might not look yellow on the camera, but I promise you it's a warm white. And then when shined through this, it comes out to a more white color. So it's a bit of a tedious process, and what you need to do, obviously order some of this 3202 Roscoe Lux, just a diffuser film. And now the idea is to cut small strips that fit inside of the areas that get lit up. So this one, as you can see, still needs to be trimmed down a tad bit to fit in there. And then same thing with this. You'll need to put some inside of this cavity. If you have the automatic lights, you'll need to put one inside this cavity here. And then depending on if you have the European switches or not, with the double wheels, you'll need to put some inside of this cavity here. Even if you have the American ones, to light up this dimmer control, you will need to put one in here. And you'll also need one inside this bottom cavity here, but it's easier to put it on the front side of the switch. What you'll want to do is you grab onto here and pull, and that will loosen this guy from the front wheel. Be careful, these are like little pins that are connected by a spring in the middle. They can fall out, so just don't make them fall. And then this guy comes off. So the easiest thing to do is to just cut a strip, put it in there, and then put it across here, I guess, to cover that whole cavity. And then this guy will cover over top of it, and as it rides over, it's not going to be able to light up that or it's not going to move the film at all, and it's going to light this little pointer, so you can see what your selection is. So tedious process. Like I said, you gotta cut, you know, obviously a half moon shape here, and then cut a small strip in here, a little half moon shape there, and extra small half moon shape there. Throw them in. I've used hot glue to kind of keep them in place, which is easy. It's time to reassemble this switch, and I'll recap really quickly what I've done so you have an idea of how tedious and time consuming that was. So as far as this guy goes, I noticed that this lamp light does light up. So I just cut out a little bit of some blue diffuser and stuck it in there, and then hot glued on each end here. As far as this guy goes, I cut this half moon circle in and put a little hot glue there, and up in this corner, and it doesn't go anywhere. And turn it around. Threw some blue diffuser in there, and I left the edges kind of long so I can kind of hold it and tuck it in there as I go. And then I put the hot glue up here, and this thing doesn't move. I put some sharp creases into the paper down at the ends so it doesn't go anywhere. Same with these, just a lot of cutting and a lot of checking. Cut a little bit, check, make sure you didn't overcut, because you don't want to get to the point where you cut too far and then the light will shine past that and it'll still illuminate it warm white behind it. So it's just really a lot of tedious process. There was no reason for you to see that on tape. So we'll just reassemble the switch and go to the car and test it out. So when it comes to reassembly, this guy has a bit of a slotting that needs to happen here. You'll notice that there's a small groove in here and then a tab on the other end. Same thing with this, the groove's up top and the tabs on the bottom. You just set it in, and then you can look through this side and you can pretty much determine how that goes, and you just slide it in. And don't lose the pin. Just get it lined up and then give her a little press. And there it goes, it just snaps right in there. Next order of biz is taking this. Oh yeah, and I didn't show this one. I just took some blue film, tucked it in there, and put some edges on the outside here and glued them down to hold this in place. So pretty much line up your LED, get this kind of in its grooves, line up that the LED goes through it, and just give it a little snap, and that's on there. Easy enough. Then this guy just covers up on top of this. All right. Yeah, actually there's so the four ends of the board here, they need to snap into this plastic there. So just give it a light pry away on the edging to get this to go in. You don't want to damage it when you're this far in. There's those two sides. All right, so that's clipped in. Then this cover, this back cover goes on. I'm sorry, that's a mistake. You put this screw in first, this Torx screw. I thought it went through that black cover, but it doesn't, so it goes underneath it. Torx screw in, just to hold this thing together. Then this black cover snaps in place. And there you go, switch is reassembled. Cool. We'll go to the car, turn it all on, and check it out. So I believe on disassembly I said that there was kind of a tight reach to get this cable out to plug everything in. But actually I ended up reaching underneath and You just moved the cable behind the dashboard and I was able to pull all the way out. So it's not even a tight fit at all. You can get it all the way out here, plug it all in, and it's easy going. This guy here, you don't need it at all for the work. So you could technically leave it all plugged in. What you do need to do is just to plug that plug into the bottom of the switch, and it only goes one way. You can't mess that one up. And so I'll plug this in really quick, put it all back, and we'll turn the lights on. Okay, so here we are. All the switches. There's the headlight switch. You can see it's pretty white, matches the rest. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.